What's up YouTube, Webberz05 here, coming at you today with Q&A number 64. You'd think by this point I would probably remember which Q&A I'm on, but no, I still have to check. So today's questions are once again brought to you by my good friend DarkPatrician84, who's got 6 questions to me, themed about decks that he used to hate. Okay, that should be interesting, so let's see what's on the list. 1. Thoughts on Infernity. I rate Infernity for its playstyle. Typically with most Yu-Gi-Oh decks, you want a lot of cards. You want a lot of cards in your hand to be able to give yourself lots of options for your plays. Infernity naturally does the opposite of that, wanting absolutely no cards in your hand in order to play, and they do an absolutely exceptional job with it. Like, I think the last time I faced Infernity was about, I think a year and a bit ago. That was against my friend Max Billingham. Some of you may know him as Silver Cyclone TCG. He showcased, this was, I think it was right around when they got that new support. I think it was in Photon Hypernova when they got their support, when they got that new wave of support. And he just demonstrated an extremely massive skill set in what you can actually do with Infernity. Like, the fact that it could so consistently just loop Infernity, Archfiend, drop 3 barrier, and then there was that new trap as well. I don't remember what that did, but that was annoying. The fact that it could just do that so easily off any kind of sort of hand was absolutely insane. So yeah, definitely it's a very interesting deck. Naturally, Infernity Barrier is a very irritating card, but for the archetype in itself and what it does, I really rate it, and definitely Max is probably one of the best Infernity players I have ever seen. 2. Thoughts on Boojin. I don't really have a tremendous opinion about Boojin, because I've never don't think I've played against it. Like, I've heard stories of why Boojin was very annoying. I'm pretty sure they were part of the catalyst as to why Kaiser Coliseum got banned. But in my personal experience, I've never really had too much games against a Boojin deck, so I don't really have a huge opinion about it. Actually, I know about a few Boojin Xyz monsters that have been splashed around different decks for different reasons. Like, I know Bujinte Tsukiyomi was played in ABC because it just required 2 level 4 light monsters, and it was a way to get the ABC pieces in the grid so you can summon Dragon Buster. I did that back in the day, so that was pretty nice. I've also naturally done things with, I think it was when I was on Zack Attack, I threw the rank 4 Boojin in that lets you mill 5 on summon. So I played around with that, but other than that, I don't really have a huge experience with Boojin, so not really having a huge opinion about them, frankly. 3. Thoughts on Chaos. Chaos as an archetype has always been quite interesting. It always seems to be like around in different formats. Like I understand for like the original Chaos strategies from like way back in Go, where the aim was to just drop Chaos Sorcerer BLS and just control the game from there. Oh, sorry guys, massively high. And then, yeah, naturally over the years we've had various assortments of Chaos variants. Like when they did, like I think probably the first reincarnation of Chaos was when they started doing those retrained forms of famous monsters in Chaos variants. So that made it pretty interesting. And then a couple of years ago, naturally, we had all those other new Chaos cards, like when we got Chaos Space, all that other stuff, like Levianeer as well. So yeah, Chaos as a deck is just one of those interesting things. Naturally, there's always been like a couple cards within each Chaos, with each wave of Chaos that's been like stupidly good, and Konami has had to put a check on it, but overall, it's just one of those very interesting, pretty balanced strategies that just works around different decks that collide with light and dark, and it's just always been very interesting. So yeah, it's just one of those. I mean, yes, some people might complain saying Chaos has just been so good and powerful, it's really annoying to deal with. But I suppose that's kind of how it is in terms of just Chaos. Chaos is always just that mix of balance between light and dark, that's how life is. One can't exist without the other. And even Yu-Gi-Oh! It needs a little bit of chaos to maintain balance in a good format. So yeah. I haven't really seen what the newer Chaos stuff does, though. I do need to take a look at it, but some of it does look pretty interesting. 4. Thoughts on wind-ups. Similar to Boojin, wind-ups is a bit before my time. Well, not exactly before my time, because I started playing back around when I started watching the original series, but I did take a break, like, in between, and it was kind of around XZs. It was around, like, end of Synchro, start of XZs when I took a break, and that was, and I'm pretty sure that's essentially when wind-ups were. So I don't really have a huge knowledge on what wind-ups do. That being said, I did watch that one scripted duel with Kaiba and Pegasus where Kaiba borrowed that kid's wind-up deck, and from what I saw there, yeah, wind-ups are pretty annoying. I can see why a lot of their stuff got hit. So, but that's me basing my opinion of what I saw in that one match. So, don't really have a huge opinion about it personally in the deck until I've actually until I was to actually take a proper look and see what wind-ups like did back in the day. Question 5, which would help if my PC had not blanked its screen. 5. Thoughts on Malefic? Malefic I find is an interesting archetype. Like, it's just dark versions of existing dragons, which is pretty cool. Naturally, for those who have seen me play Cyberdark, you know I'm a huge fan of Malefic Truth Dragon and equipping it to Cyberdark Dragon just to give it a massive, stupid power boost. So I'm very, very much fond of that. But in terms of the deck itself, like, in the beginning when it first came out, it was interesting, but very highly restrictive. In my opinion, when it first came out, it was kind of just like, to simplify, probably a worse version of Earthbound Immortals. And then when it got the newer waves of support, which gave it more accessibility in what it can do, because now they've got that continuous spell which states ignore their current restriction, and it's now just you can only control one Malefic per name. So that looks like it's making it a bit better, so that's definitely a bit more interesting. But I've never really played properly against a Malefic deck, so I've never really seen what it's capable of in a match. But who knows? Maybe I'll get a chance to do so. Maybe I won't. I'll have to wait and see. But overall, I think the Malefic archetype is quite interesting. 6. Are there any decks you used to hate? Decks that I used to hate. Well, most of the decks that I used to hate were probably top tier decks that got basically smashed on the ban list for a very good justified reason. So for me, Sprite was a deck I did hate back in the day, though I think that was more towards I hated Sprite Elf as opposed to the Sprite archetype. Because Sprite Elf was just a caster, so it's just cool, I'm just going to use Toad. It's just cool, I'm going to use Toad twice. Then they got double cross, it's cool, now I can use Toad 3 times in one turn. Stupid. So yeah, my hate for that was primarily more towards Elf as opposed to anything else in the archetype. Overall, Sprites are pretty decent. It's overall pretty decent, completely based around 2, so that's not so bad. So it's not so bad. It's not there's not exactly that many levels, links, and rank 2s that are stupidly broken. I mean, there's some pretty good ones within the Sprite archetype itself, but that's, based on being within archetype, which is completely fine. Overall, it's not bad. Now, I don't really mind as much. It got pretty much very much more balanced after Elf got banned. Hitting Sprite starts to 2. Yes, mild consistency check didn't really do anything. I am pretty much like a lot of those people. I don't really rate the semi-limited list. Put it at 2, put it at 1, put it at 3, unless it's a card that specifically works, like Malicious. Really doesn't need to exist. I think the only other deck I can think of that I used to hate would probably be Rainbow Neos, but that's less about the deck and more about what the deck did to me. For those who don't know, I once had a match with a who was it? Not entirely sure. I just remember him as the Rainbow Neos player that decided to. It was a match with Cyberdarks. They decided to Rainbow Neos, shuffle my graveyard back into my deck to reduce down the power of my dragon, which wasn't a massive big deal considering it was still equipped with Malefic Truth Dragon, so it still had the 6k after that. And then this person just decided to add insult to injury and decided to MST my equip card and drop it to a measly 1100. I mean, frankly, he could have just, MST'd the equip first, and then he probably would have been fine to smack over. But no, he just had to go overboard and do that to me. But that's more of a hatred towards what the Rainbow Neos did to me, and not so much towards the deck. I've such moved on, but that moment is still very annoying. You didn't have to do it that way. If you were going to just MST my thing anyway, why wouldn't you MST the equip first, then shuffle it back? Where's the sense? And thinking about anything, let me think. Any other decks that I used to hate? I can't really think of any other main decks that I did really used to hate. I think for me it's more like there were like certain strategies that I hated. Like, I really didn't like, so like most of these like really splashable engines that you see getting played and everything, like when Nightmare was huge just for the extra link capabilities, then things like Zodiac, that wasn't not great either. But yeah, not really any other specific decks that I hate right now. And on that note, guys, that's all the questions I have today, so thank you very much, Dark Magician 84, for your questions. Very amusing as always. And if anyone else has any questions for me, I do these Q&As every Wednesday UK time. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.